Hello everyone! We are already in quarter 1, week 2, and for today, we will study zero conditional, which is a line in MELC use conditionals in expressing arguments. For learning task 1, motivation task, match the statement in column A with the statement found in column B. Write the letter of your answer on space before the number. So this is the learning task that you will find in your WHLP, which is Learning Task 1 or Motivation Task. Remember, you just have to choose your answer in column B and choose only the letter and write it on the space provided before the number. So you have to do this directly in your WHLP. Okay? So I'll give you 5 minutes here. Now that you are done answering part 1 of the learning task 1, this time you're going to answer the following questions. Are you ready? Okay. So first is, what have you noticed to the form or structure of the sentences? Now you will go to your WHLP again and you will see this question, then place your answer there. And then, number 2, do you know what kind of sentences they are? If you know, so you can write your answer here on the space provided, which you can find in your WHLP. So remember class, there is no such correct or wrong answer here. The purpose of this task is to identify or to know what you know about this topic. Okay? Reminder, do not answer learning task 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on pages 18 to 22, weeks 3 to 5, found in your module. Let us now learn zero conditional. Remember that zero conditional is 100% or will always happen. Zero conditional deals with habits and general truths such as laws. It is formed using this structure: if or when plus subject plus simple present tense. Then subject plus simple present tense. This one is called if clause or when clause. If clause and when clause present the condition. And this clause is the main clause. The main clause explains the result. For example, if I put the water in the freezer, it turns into ice. This clause is the example of if clause. This is the condition. And this clause is the main clause. And this is the result of the condition. Do you remember the structure of zero conditional sentence which I showed earlier? Let's take a look at its structure again. For the if or when clause, it always starts with either if or when, then the subject, then the predicate or simple present tense of the verb, and don't forget comma. Remember that when the subject is singular, such as Maria, Juan, notebook, they are all nouns, or she, he, it, they are all pronouns, the predicate or the verb should be singular as well, such as is, am, they are linking verbs, and then walks, washes, cries. Remember that the base form of the verb, you just have to add s, es, or ies, just like what I do in these examples. Am is used if the subject is I. For example, I am. If the subject is plural, such as Maria and Juan, Joel and I, notebooks, or they or we, of course, the predicate or simple present tense of the verb should also be plural, such as are for linking verb, and then for action verb, walk, wash, cry. Remember that the plural verb doesn't have s, es, or ies. Remember that no es, no ies, or no s at the end of the verb. Now there is exemption. Though pronoun I and you function as singular, the action verb we use like walk, wash, or cry should always be plural. For examples, I walk, I wash, I cry. Or you walk, you wash, you cry. This is the structure for the main clause. Subject plus predicate or simple present tense of the verb, and don't forget period at the end of it. As you can see, the subject it is singular. Therefore, the verb should end with S like turns. Is it clear to you? Wow, that's great. Let us practice. Let us do learning task 2. So here, you have to complete the zero conditional statements below by underlining the correct verbs in the parentheses. This task, you can see it in your WHLP, okay? So you may answer there directly in your WHLP. So number 1, when my mother goes to grocery store, she always buys, catches, get face mask and alcohol. Please underline the correct word. Number 2, if my father is at home, my little brother and him toss, cleans, play indoor basketball. Underline the correct word. And number 3, when I cook sinigang or adobo for lunch, my family was, finds, gets happy. And underline the word here. Okay? Let us go back to this example. The question is the position of these clauses interchangeable? Can you put main clause at the beginning of the sentence followed by the if clause or when clause? Well, the answer is yes. These two clauses are interchangeable. This time, let us change their positions. We're going to put main clause at the beginning of the sentence followed by the if clause or the when clause. Are you ready? Okay, let's try this one. The water turns into ice. If I put it in the freezer, let me repeat. The water turns into ice if I put it in the freezer. Now, could you please tell me what have you observed to this example? Okay, so as you notice, the subject it turns into the water and the noun phrase the water becomes it. Now, why do we have to change them either? Well, since the main clause is already the beginning of the zero conditional sentence, we have to change it into its noun phrase, the water. Then the pronoun it is used in the if clause to avoid repeating this noun phrase. Remember, class, that we should indicate first the noun before replacing it into its pronoun to avoid confusion. Another example, when I watch Korean dramas, I become happy. Now, let us change their positions. I become happy when I watch Korean dramas. Let me give you more tips in writing zero conditional sentences. So you may begin with if, and of course, since this is the beginning of your sentence, please don't forget to capitalize the first letter of the word. Now, as you notice, though I is not the beginning of the sentence, it is capitalized. Class, remember that wherever you place the word I in your sentence, it should always be capitalized. Then don't forget comma to separate the if clause from the main clause, and period at the end of the sentence. You may also begin with when. So when here is capitalized. And then as you notice, the two I's here are capitalized or in big letters. Don't forget comma as well as the period. Now, if you change their positions, if you start your zero conditional sentence with main clause followed by the if clause, these are my tips. So, of course, as I mentioned earlier, don't forget that the beginning of your sentence, the first letter of the first word should be capitalized. And then the rest of the words except I should be in big letter. Okay? Now, how will you know that there are two clauses here? How will you know when there is if clause? or when clause? Can you tell me? What is your hint or clue? Okay, so you have to find the signal word, which is the if or the when. So here in this sentence, we have what? We have the word if. Okay, and then as you notice, I is capitalized, and then don't forget the period at the end of the sentence. The next one, so here it is at the beginning of the sentence. Automatically, it is what? It is in big letter. And then the rest of the words, just like become, of course, they should be in small letters. And then here, the signal that you can find to tell you that there is if clause or when clause is when. And then I is in big letter. Don't forget period. When you change their positions, when you put the main clause first followed by the if or the when clause, these are my tips. So for example, this one. Remember that the beginning of your sentence, the word of it should be in capital letter, just like the letter T in the word the. And then no need to put comma to separate these two clauses. And then you will see if, which signals that there is an if clause. And then at the end of your sentence, you will see period. Okay? Now, as you can see here, the word I, it is capitalized. Another example. So here, the two I's are capitalized, and then the rest of the words except Korean, they are in small letters. And then you will see the signal when, which tells us that there is when clause. Then don't forget the period at the end of your sentence. Let's practice again. Let us do the part 2 of learning task 2. So this time, you're going to change the positions of the two clauses. Place the main clause first, followed by the if or when clause. You may do this in any clean sheet of paper. Number 1. When my mother goes to grocery store, she always buys face masks and alcohol. Number 2. If my father is at home, my little brother and he play indoor basketball. Number 3. When I cook sinigang or adobo for lunch, my family gets happy. Let's check if your answer is the same as mine. For number 1, my mother always buys face masks and alcohol when she goes to grocery store. Number 2, my little brother and father play indoor basketball when he is at home. Number 3, my family gets happy when I cook sinigang or adobo for lunch. Okay, so do we have the same answers? I hope so. Learning Task 3. Study the conditional statements below, then complete them by supplying the possible results. Please answer this directly in your WHLP. Are you ready? Number 1. I wear face mask when I. Number 2. I cover my nose and mouth if I. Number 3. I sanitize my hands using alcohol if I. Okay, so please complete the following 3 sentences. Okay, don't forget to supply the possible results. For learning task 4, make zero conditional out of the given scenario. Make sure that the sentence you make is true like a scientific fact, which is 100% or will always happen. Are you ready? Okay, for example, sleeping too much. So sleeping too much is the scenario. So this is the example zero conditional sentence. When I sleep too much, I get headache and body pain. Or you may interchange this. I get headache and body pain When I sleep too much. Now it's your turn. Number 1. Eating too much. Number 2. Always drinking alcoholic drink. And number 3. Touching fire. Now let's do learning task 5. Let us see if you learned something from this lesson. So what are you going to do is you're going to write T if the statement is correct, and F if the statement is false. Place your answer on the space provided. Number 1. Zero conditional deals with general truths such as law and scientific fact. Number 2. Simple past tense is used in making zero conditional. Number 3. If or when clause is the result, while the main clause is the condition. Number 4. I can use either if or when in zero conditional. And number 5. If the main clause appears before conditional, the meaning of the sentence remains the same. Now you may smile because we are done. So I'll see you tomorrow. Don't forget to accomplish your WHLP or the learning task that you can see in your WHLP. So bye!